She had rehearsed this moment, not in front of a mirror, not with her attorney, in her head, every quiet drive, every sleepless stretch of a night that refused to end. Carrie Neurauter had turned this moment over so many times that by the time she actually sat down in that conference room, she almost felt ready. Almost. The chair was hard, the room was small, and the recorder on the table between her and the investigators was already running. She was 19 years old, a computer engineering student at the Rochester Institute of Technology, someone who had been set to graduate in less than a year, a future that had made complete sense just weeks before. And now she was sitting in a Steuben County building, about to say out loud the thing that had been sitting inside her chest like a stone since the end of August. The investigator leaned forward, asked her when it started, and Carrie took a breath. Because here is the thing about that moment.
You head to Corning, your dad's in the car with you. Where is he seated at this point?
Passenger seat.
Passenger seat, you guys are driving down.
You know he got something out of his car before he got into your car, or was that
His jacket and the rope.
just the jacket and the rope?
How did you know he got the rope?
Wasn't in my car.
Okay, fair enough.
And then, wait. No, that's a lie. I'm sorry. I went in the house. I'm like, go get out, I guess. And I went back to my car.
When you scoped it out, did you know where it was at that point?
Yeah, I saw it on the couch.
Okay.
I don't remember her being like, what's going on? But so I just told her, like, oh, Mom's still freaking out.
So I'm going to ask you one more time. Did you help adjust in any way, top or bottom, either the rope part or her body? And we need to know that now because we're talking to your dad and we want to make sure we have the same story. What?
I'm a lawyer.
I'm a lawyer. Okay.
Lloyd worked as an engineer at Corning Glass, the Fortune 500 company the town was named for. Michelle taught English at a nearby college. Later, she stepped away from that to raise her daughters full-time. From the street, from the outside, from every angle a neighbor or family friend might have looked, it appeared to be a life that had been carefully and deliberately built. Carrie was the second of 3 daughters. She grew up in Corning alongside her sisters in a household that carried every surface appearance of stability. She took ballet as a child. She had a mother who pushed her daughters to be curious, well-spoken, and educated. A mother who showed up, who stayed present, who, by every account on record, was warm, sharp, and quietly funny. Carrie grew up with that woman in the house, and she also grew up with her father. That is the part that matters here. People close to the family described Lloyd as a father whose discipline was unpredictable. One family friend recalled watching Carrie specifically, physically trembling during one of his outbursts. Visible fear in a child's body in front of other people. Carrie knew that feeling from the inside. She had spent years learning how to read the room before anyone else noticed the temperature had changed. That particular skill, the one children develop in homes where the atmosphere shifts without warning, does not leave a person easily. It follows them into adulthood, into the decisions they make when someone they love backs them into a corner. In 2008, Lloyd took a job in New Jersey and left Corning. Michelle and the girls stayed behind. Friends who knew Michelle said she seemed like a different person after he left, more relaxed, more present. Lighter in a way that was visible to everyone around her. Carrie was around 11 years old when her father walked out the door, old enough to notice what the house felt like without him in it, old enough to register the difference. What she did with that difference over the years that followed is something the courts would spend a long time trying to untangle. Michelle Neurauter was 46 years old at the time of her death. She had spent the final years of her life fighting a divorce that refused to close, holding her home together, and reaching toward her daughters even as the distance between them quietly grew. On the last full day of her life, she was outside with friends and her children, laughing, sliding down a grass hill on large blocks of ice in the August heat. Carrie was not there that day, but Michelle was, fully, completely alive. Distance does not always weaken a person's grip. Sometimes it sharpens it. After Lloyd left Corning for New Jersey, he did not disappear from his daughters' lives. He called, he visited, he stayed involved in a way that looked, from the outside, like a father who simply refused to let a divorce turn him into a stranger. But underneath all of that, something else was running. Quiet, patient, deliberate. In the years following the divorce, Michelle filed court documents formally accusing Lloyd of turning their daughters against her. It was not a passing complaint. It was a documented, repeated concern, raised in legal filings because she could feel it happening and did not know how else to make it stop. She was watching her relationship with her own children disappear. Not all at once, gradually, in ways that left almost no fingerprints. For Carrie, the shift arrived across years. She was a teenager when it began taking hold, a college student by the time it had fully settled, and at no point along the way did it feel like something being done to her. That is the nature of it. People close to the case described how Lloyd worked steadily to position himself as the parent his daughters could trust, while pulling away, piece by piece, any foundation Carrie had for seeing her mother as someone worth trusting at all. He did not tell her to resent Michelle. He did not need to. He simply kept offering her a particular version of her mother, quietly, consistently, across years, until Carrie stopped questioning whether that version was accurate, until it felt like something she had worked out entirely for herself. Then came the moment that revealed exactly how complete that process had become. 2 years before August 2017, Carrie and Michelle had an argument while Michelle was backing out of the driveway of their home. Lloyd told Carrie afterward that her mother had deliberately tried to run her over with the car. Carrie contacted the police on her own mother. The complaint produced no charges. A mother moving her car out of her own driveway, reconstructed, in her daughter's mind, into something deliberate, something threatening, because her father said so, and Carrie believed him. The district attorney who later built the case had a name for what Lloyd had been doing all those years: parental alienation, not simply turning a child against the other parent through repeated criticism, but systematically reducing that parent's humanity in the child's eyes, to the point where they no longer register as fully real, fully deserving of care. There is a meaningful difference between a child who is angry at a parent and a child who has been conditioned, slowly, carefully across years, to see that parent as something less than worth protecting. One produces distance, the other produces a 19-year-old who picks up the phone when her father calls and does not hang up. By the time Lloyd made that call in August of 2017, he was carrying over $100,000 in personal debt. He had been making court-ordered monthly payments to Michelle for years. He had fought for sole custody of the couple's youngest daughter and lost. The financial weight was real. The legal defeat was real. But Lloyd did not carry any of it alone. He had spent years making sure of that. And when the moment came to hand the heaviest part of it to someone else, Carrie was already holding out her hands. It was early August of 2017. Carrie was in her college apartment in Rochester. A new semester was days away. Her final year at the Rochester Institute of Technology, close enough to the end that she could feel the shape of what came after. And then her phone rang. Her father's voice was not frantic, not desperate. He spoke the way someone speaks when they have already decided. Lloyd told her he could not keep paying her mother, that the financial weight had become more than he could carry, that he saw no way forward, and then he told her he was going to end his own life, unless she helped him with what he described as the only other option, which was taking Michelle's life instead. He had built the box carefully across years, and now he was handing Carrie the walls. Choose him or lose him. Those were the edges of the world he had placed her in. She did not say no. What followed was not a single impulsive night. It was weeks. Carrie went to class. She answered messages. She moved through the ordinary rhythm of a college student in the final stretch of her degree. And underneath all of it, running beneath every normal hour of every normal day, was the knowledge of what she had agreed to, what was coming, what her silence already made her part of. That is the detail that gets lost in the courtroom paperwork. Not just the night itself, but the weeks before it. The ordinary life she kept showing up to, while carrying something that was anything but ordinary. That Saturday evening, Lloyd checked into a hotel near Carrie's apartment. She visited him there later that night, but hotel security footage that investigators would later review told a different story than the one both of them offered police. The footage shows Lloyd getting into Carrie's car. It does not show him returning to the hotel that night. They drove south together, back toward Corning, back toward Dwight Avenue, back toward Michelle. Carrie later admitted to disconnecting electronic devices inside the house to ensure no record of their presence. She kept her younger sister, who had been asleep in the living room, occupied and away from the rest of the house. Lloyd went upstairs to where Michelle was. Carrie stayed downstairs, listening to a house she had grown up in go completely quiet. When it was over, she helped her father make the scene appear as though Michelle had taken her own life. Lloyd then slipped out through the back of the house. Carrie drove her younger sister back to Rochester with Lloyd concealed in the rear of the car. Her sister, 14 years old, had no idea her father had ever been inside that house that night. Carrie knew. She sat in that car with her sleeping sister beside her, and she knew exactly what she was driving away from. A few hours later, Lloyd appeared on hotel camera footage walking across the parking lot at 6:30 in the morning, still in the same clothes from the night before. He joined Carrie and her younger sister for breakfast shortly after. Then he flew to California for a job interview he had already arranged. Carrie watched him leave. And then it was just her and her sister. And the silence of a Sunday morning in Rochester, that felt nothing like any Sunday she had known before. The call came that same Sunday afternoon. A neighbor had noticed something wrong at the house on Dwight Avenue. Police were already on their way. And Carrie was nearly 100 miles north in Rochester, waiting for the version of this moment she had known was coming since the night before. Investigators were moving underneath the surface. Within 36 hours of Michelle's death being reported, Lloyd appeared at Steuben County Family Court. Not to make arrangements for his children, not to reach out to Michelle's family, but to file paperwork terminating his financial obligations to Michelle. That was the first place he went. Not to his daughters, not to Michelle's family, to a courthouse, to stop the payments. That detail sat with investigators in a way that did not go away. Neither did the hotel footage. Security recordings showed Lloyd getting into Carrie's car that Saturday night with no footage of him returning. When he reappeared on camera the following morning at 6:30, he was wearing the same clothes he had on the night before. His phone had been in that hotel room all night. Lloyd had not. Prosecutors brought in a private forensic specialist to challenge the undetermined ruling. There were no physical remains left to examine. Lloyd had arranged for Michelle to be cremated, but the specialist reviewed the autopsy photographs and documentation, identified physical indicators consistent with manual strangulation, and reached a conclusion that was anything but undetermined. This was a homicide. Lloyd had removed the one thing that might have told the clearest story. And yet, the evidence kept speaking anyway. In mid-November of 2017, investigators obtained authorization to monitor both Lloyd and Carrie's phones. To generate activity, a detective called Carrie directly, presenting as an investigator who needed a follow-up conversation. Carrie agreed, then hung up and called her father within minutes. What came through those recorded lines was not grief, it was instruction. Lloyd told her to mention a counseling appointment.
Tell him I'm sorry. I got a counseling appointment back in New Jersey tonight. And tell him this has been really hard on me.
Yeah.
Could you cry?
I'm like,
God,
yeah.
It would be nice if then it was just over.
That would be the dream. Well, if it was anything more serious, I guess you'd have people coming after me anyways, right?
Yeah, he wouldn't ask you to come walk in the front door. He'd say, I have a warrant.
Yeah.
So it can't be that.
To say the situation had been hard on her, and then, with an ease that investigators found deeply significant, he asked whether she thought she could cry if it came to that. Carrie told him she might. She was still inside the role her father had written for her, still performing it, still holding every line in place. But the recording was running, and the people listening were no longer unsure of what they were hearing. January 24th, 2018. 5 months after the house on Dwight Avenue went quiet. Carrie was at her college internship in Syracuse when they found her, not at home, not somewhere she could have run, just at work, on an ordinary Wednesday morning when 2 state police troopers walked in. She went with them. And somewhere between that internship and the police station, everything she had been holding upright for 5 months finally gave way. Investigators sat Carrie down and told her the medical examiner had officially confirmed Michelle's death as a homicide. They wanted her account, all of it. And Carrie talked. Not in careful managed pieces, not in the measured way she had spoken to investigators back in August. She talked the way people talk when the weight of something becomes heavier than the fear of putting it down. There is a particular quality to that kind of account. The words come out differently than rehearsed ones do. They come out attached to things the speaker did not plan to say. And for Carrie, sitting in that room, 5 months of constructed silence finally collapsing, they came out whole. She told them about the plan, about the drive, about what she had done inside that house. And then she said something she had never said before. Something that shifted the weight of the case in a way nobody in that room had anticipated. Carrie admitted that after Lloyd confronted Michelle upstairs and the house went silent, she had not simply waited downstairs. She had physically helped her father arrange the scene to make Michelle's death appear self-inflicted. The investigators had expected her to be the one who broke first. What they had not expected was the full dimension of what breaking revealed. Carrie was given a polygraph examination. She passed. District Attorney Brooks Baker stated that her results led him to believe her account was truthful. As part of her agreement, she committed to testifying against her father in any future proceedings. Passing that examination meant something beyond the legal mechanics of it. It meant the people across the table believed her. For perhaps the first time in this entire story, someone was taking Carrie's version of events at face value. 200 miles south, investigators delivered the same news to Lloyd. Confirmed homicide. Come in. He agreed to a polygraph, was given an address, and vanished. Carrie learned later what had happened. Police traced Lloyd to a municipal parking structure in Princeton, New Jersey. He was found on the roof, on the railing of the 5th story, refusing to come down. After a standoff lasting 2 hours, an officer moved in and brought him to the ground. Lloyd Neurouter was taken into custody. The man who had told his daughter he would end his own life had just spent 2 hours making that threat visible. Carrie was already in a jail cell by then, sitting with every word she had just said out loud, sitting with the strange and unfamiliar weight of having finally told the truth, after 5 months of something that was not. In March of 2018, Carrie Neurouter stood in Steuben County Court and entered her guilty plea. She admitted to intentionally aiding her father in connection with Michelle's death on August 28, 2017. She agreed to testify against Lloyd in future proceedings. She faced up to 15 years to life in state prison. No more roles to perform, no more versions of events to maintain, just Carrie. And the full weight of a choice made on a phone call. The previous August, while Carrie sat in a jail cell waiting for what came next, the case against her father was being built in rooms she could not see. She had agreed to testify against him. That agreement had taken something from her that no legal document could name. Because testifying against Lloyd Neurouter did not just mean sitting in a courtroom. It meant saying out loud, in front of a judge, in front of strangers, that her father had used her and that she had let him. Prosecutors knew that Carrie's word alone might not be enough. A jury hearing a daughter speak against a father in a case this layered would need something that existed independently of what either of them had chosen to say. Something physical, something that could not be negotiated away. Investigators re-examined Michelle's clothing using state police forensic testing, specifically searching for touch DNA. What came back confirmed that Lloyd's DNA had been in direct contact with the clothing Michelle was wearing on the night she was killed. Carrie would not have known about that finding from her jail cell, but when prosecutors brought it directly to Lloyd, a man who had insisted for months he was never in that house, the physical evidence said otherwise, and unlike a confession, it did not waver. Just 2 weeks before his trial was set to begin, Lloyd Neurouter pleaded guilty to first-degree murder, custodial interference in the first degree, and second-degree conspiracy. The trial Carrie had spent months preparing herself to walk into never happened. When Lloyd stood before the judge to account for what he had done, he opened by pointing at Michelle. He told the court he had acted because he believed she might harm their children. Michelle's mother, Jeanne Landy, was in that courtroom. Her response, documented and on record, was 4 words: blame everybody else. Blame the victim. But Lloyd continued. He said it did not matter, that he had no excuse, that what he had done was wrong. And he went through his actions line by line, including stating explicitly that he had manipulated Carrie into participating. He said it himself, in open court, on the record, not as a defense, as an admission. On December 4th, 2018, Lloyd Neurauter was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He is currently incarcerated at Clinton Correctional Facility in Dannemora, New York. 1 week later, it was Carrie's turn. She stood in the same Steuben County courtroom, in front of the same judge, carrying the same last name as the man who had just been handed the rest of his life behind bars. Her attorney petitioned Judge Peter Bradstreet to reduce her charge from second-degree murder to second-degree manslaughter. Both the judge and the district attorney supported that reduction. The court agreed there was documented reason for leniency given the evidence of sustained psychological manipulation. Carrie was sentenced to 1 to 3 years in state prison. As part of the agreement, there would be no appeal of the conviction. For a case of this gravity, that outcome was not leniency for its own sake. It was a court formally putting on record something the evidence had made impossible to ignore. Carrie stood in that courtroom and heard her sentence read aloud. After everything, the phone call, the drive, the weeks of carrying what she knew, the months of holding a false story in place, the confession, the jail cell, she finally heard what those in authority had concluded about her, that she was not simply someone who had made a catastrophic choice. She was someone who had been carefully and deliberately prepared to make exactly that choice, by exactly that man. That distinction did not erase what she had done, but it changed what justice looked like. Before Carrie's sentencing, a letter arrived at the AR courthouse, not from a lawyer, not from an investigator, from Michelle's mother, Carrie's grandmother. Jean Landy had sat down and written something that no one in that courtroom was fully prepared to receive. She had buried her daughter. She had watched her granddaughter stand in a court of law and admit to being part of that loss. And what she put on paper was not rage. It was not bitterness. She told the judge that Carrie was genuinely a good person, that she had been manipulated and controlled, and that she could see it now, that Carrie herself could finally see it. And then one more line. She wrote that she did not believe Michelle would have wanted a long prison sentence for her daughter. The woman who had carried Michelle into the world was asking the court to go easy on the person who had helped take her out of it, because Jeanne understood something the legal proceedings had spent months trying to measure, that there were 2 separate losses inside this case. Michelle and the daughter Lloyd had been quietly hollowing out long before that August night ever came. Jeanne made clear her intention to ensure Michelle's daughters understood how deeply their mother had loved them, that everything Michelle had fought for through every difficult year, every court filing, every door she refused to let close, had been for them. That was what Carrie was walking back toward, whether she could feel it yet or not. On January 16th, 2020, Carrie Neurauter was released from state prison and placed under community supervision in Essex County, New Jersey. She had served approximately 1 year. She walked out into a life that looked nothing like the one she had been building before that phone call in August of 2017. She has not spoken publicly since her release. Somewhere the youngest daughter, the one Carrie drove back to Rochester that night, asleep beside her, completely unaware, is living a life she did not choose the shape of. That image, a sleeping 14-year-old in the passenger seat, her older sister knowing exactly what they were driving away from, is the one that stays with you long after the courtroom doors close. Both daughters shaped by the same man. Both of them left to carry something he set down the moment those prison doors closed behind him. This case does not settle into something comfortable. It leaves you with a question the courts addressed, but could not fully answer. If someone spends years carefully conditioning another person to trust the wrong things, step by deliberate step, at what point does the law treat that process, not simply as background to a crime, but as a crime in itself? Michelle's family is still living inside that question. So, if you have stayed with this story until now, are you? If this case made you think, leave your thoughts below. And if you believe Michelle deserved to be remembered as more than a name inside someone else's story, you already know what to do.